PaaS CDN service concepts. In this section, let's look at what CDN service would look like if it's a platform as a service. So as part of this section, we look at managed CDN service, which is the PaaS CDN service. We look at some of the features that are offered by a managed CDN service. What are the capabilities that they should offer? What are the capabilities that we should be looking for when we are choosing a PaaS provider? And then we'll also look at the cost model. So you're ready to roll. You're ready to roll your e-commerce application with all kinds of content: images, video, PDF documents, static HTML pages, style sheets, JavaScript, dynamic, all kinds of content. And you realize that you need a CDN. You have two options. You can roll your own, or you can use a managed CDN service. Once again, managed CDN service is a CDN service that's available as a platform as a service. You want to roll your own. The reality is not too many enterprises roll their own. And the real reality is that if you can roll your own, then you will be a billionaire. It's a pretty serious business to be in. Well, if you do want to roll your own, then you could do it using an IaaS provider, somebody like AWS. You can launch servers all over the world on the cloud providers' edge servers. We know that AWS has its own edge servers. There's a whole bunch of edge servers that AWS has. You can build your custom serving software. You have to write your own. I don't really know of any CDN open source packages that are available. You may have to write your own. You have to take a bunch of components, put it together. And then you'll have to install the software on the various locations and of course maintain the software. That is a lot of work. You're better off using a managed CDN. What we want is the managed CDN service where you don't have to really install anything. The CDN is available as a platform for us. All we do is write our application, take the static content and put the static content in CDN. And all we have to do is configure the CDN. And the CDN would do everything for us. That's what we really want. If that's what we want for a CDN, then what are the features that we really need? What do we need to look for? And what are the services that may be offered by a CDN? Let's look at that. Well, it should be the ability to configure content distribution on the fly, choose custom origin servers, choose different types of content, be able to have coverage for the world, ability to geo-target, ability to disclose architecture internal workings. So how much do the providers disclose their architecture, forward client HTTP header information, support HTTP methods, invalidate the content, serve securely, get complete detailed reports. So there's a lot of requirements that I'm posing over here for a cloud CDN provider or a managed CDN provider. Let's look at these requirements in detail. Configure distributions. Should be able to configure distributions fast, and we should be able to do this thing without complex contracts. Many times when you're working with a CDN provider, there's going to be a lot of contracts. There might be upfront cost, there might be negotiations of how many servers you want. We don't want any of those things. All we want to do is be able to launch a service using a console or an API or some kind of a tool. And as soon as we launch the service, and by the way, a CDN service is typically called a distribution. Just like we have RDS instances, we have CDN distributions. So we should be able to launch a CDN distribution very, very fast. Custom origin servers. An origin server is a server where the original content is placed. The CDN should be able to support CDN provided origin servers, which means the CDN provider themselves has origin servers and they take your content and put it in their origin server. They should also be able to have support for custom servers. In other words, I want my own origin server. I want to control the dynamic serving of the content, and so they should be able to connect to that. Some providers, like I said to you, want you to put all their content on their network, and then they distribute it to the edge from their origin. So you have to basically give it to them. You have to FTP to them or SCP to them, and they'll do everything. Well, some providers would allow you to have your website in your premises and they'll connect to you. And the point I'm trying to make is that you should have the ability to select your own custom origin server. Should have the ability to select from multiple origin servers based upon several factors. For a CDN distribution, there may be multiple origin servers. There might be 2 or 3 different origin servers. There might be one origin server in Europe. There might be another origin server in North America. And the CDN edge servers should be able to go to either one of them to get the content, or they should be able to route based upon various URL types. So we'll talk more about this when we start getting into a CDN implementation, when we start getting into AWS CloudFront. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea as to what do we mean by custom origin servers. The CDN provider should be able to serve different types of content. They should be able to serve static or cacheable content. Notice we defined static content to be cacheable content. So purely static content like images, video, software, documents, and patches should be able to be served. And the cacheable content can also be served. That's what we really want a CDN provider to do. They should be able to serve streaming content such as video and audio. What kind of a coverage does the CDN provider have? Do they only have 5 edge sites, or do they have tens of hundreds of edge sites? What do they have? So number of edge locations or edge sites that a provider maintains is an important factor for choosing a CDN. It's something that you should know. And also, what is their edge server expansion plan? If they are not much widespread in Asia, are they planning to expand in Asia? That's something you would want to know, especially if you're going to be serving content to Asia. Geo-targeting. You should be able to choose locations where the content can be served. And this is actually accomplished by using the client IP address. Based upon where the client is coming from, it is possible to figure out which country the client is coming from. And you should be able to say, I want to serve content to this country, or I don't want to serve content to this country. So there is this concept of whitelisting regions and countries. In the same way, you should also be able to blacklist regions or countries where you don't want to serve content. CDN is a quite complicated beast, although it looks simple. There's a lot of internal architectural details that the provider maintains, the provider does in order to serve the content fast and have your system available and have it scale. They use techniques like HTTP cache, keep alive connection, TCP slow start optimization, half bridge versus full bridge SSL termination, DNS latency routing, RTMP streaming, collapse forwarding, and all kinds of new technologies, new ideas maybe. You want to have an understanding of what is it that they are really doing. Talk to the CDN provider. When we look at AWS CloudFront, I'm going to be going through each one of these different techniques and how the CDN provider accomplishes serving highly available, scalable, performant content. Client HTTP header information. Does the CDN provider have the capability to forward cookies and request parameters that's coming from the user agent, from the browser to the edge server back to you? That's really the question. Because if you can, there are certain kinds of applications that you can do based upon CDN. HTTP method. What kind of HTTP methods does the CDN support? Does it only support GET content? Typically, most CDNs support that because that's what you use to get static content. But it is possible for you to have post, put, delete as CDN requests that can be sent to the server side. And there are certain class of applications that can take advantage of that. So the question you have to ask is, does your CDN support other HTTP methods? Invalidate the content. Sometimes it may be necessary to invalidate the content. So you put a content on your origin server, the client asks for the content, the client goes to the edge server to get the content. Now the content has been distributed from your origin server to the edge server and to the client. Now there's not much you can do in terms of invalidating the content in the browser, but you can surely invalidate the content. In other words, you can say, hey, I don't want this content to be cached anymore. So is there any mechanism for you to go to your CDN distributor and say, could you please invalidate this particular content? In other words, do not serve from cache anymore because I have a newer version of it. So the point is the CDN provider should provide a mechanism to invalidate the content. In other words, to void the content. Detailed reports. The CDN provider should have the capability to get reports to you And these reports should give details about every HTTP request that came in into the edge location, about the HTTP headers, the client IP, bad requests and the good requests. And the report should be available in machine readable formats, CSV files, XML files, JSON files, whatever they choose, so that you can incorporate that with your current analytics. Security is a very important aspect. We said that there are three tenets of web application: security, performance, and availability. And the CDN provider should be able to provide you with a CDN solution that will allow you to serve the content securely. Does it have SSL support? And if they do, can they do custom certificates? In other words, they can serve the content on your behalf under your domain SSL certificates, to be precise. Support for private content. This is what I mean by saying where you do want the edge server to serve the content, but you want the edge server to not store the content, not cache the content. There are certain benefits you can still have if you start using edge servers even for private content. If you're going to be doing put operations or post operations using the edge servers, maybe you're collecting credit card information, or maybe you're sending back details about a customer's account. In such case, do they have PCI compliance if they're going to be caching that information? Again, there's a lot to do with security and CDNs. The cost model. What is the cost model for the CDN? It could be based upon the number of bytes that are served to the end users. It could be based upon the number of requests that are coming from the end users. It could be the number of bytes transferred from the origin server to the edge server. Remember, there's also data that is being transferred from the origin to the edge server. Even though the clients are coming from Tokyo and accessing an edge server in Tokyo, originally the data was in Ashburn, and now the data has to go from Ashburn into Tokyo. There might be price that's associated with that. Invalidation requests charge. Many content providers charge for invalidation requests because now they have to go back to all those different edge sites and ask them to erase the content. Custom SSL support. Do they allow you to bring in your own custom certificates for the domains? Tiers of pricing based on edge location. They may say, hey, if you want your content to be only in North America or only in North America and Europe, then we will have a flat price. It's what is called price bands. And the pricing can also be based upon country. Certain countries may have much higher pricing versus other countries. So there's different factors that may be involved in terms of cost model and pricing. So in summary, a PaaS CDN is a managed content delivery distribution network. A PaaS CDN offers several features, and we as a consumer of a PaaS CDN should weigh in and take a look at all these different features before we decide which CDN provider we want to go with. For example, do you have the ability to configure the content distributions on the fly, real fast? Can you choose custom origin servers, different origin servers, different URLs to go to different origin servers? Can you choose to serve different kinds of content, images, style sheets, which are static content, also shareable content, also streaming content? Ability of the CDN provider to cover the world. How many edge servers do they have? How many edge sites do they have? Ability to geo-target. Can you geo-target so that you serve content only to certain countries? You blacklist certain countries or whitelist certain countries. Ability to disclose architectural internal workings. Will your CDN provider tell you some of the internal workings of the architecture so you can choose them or not choose them? Ability to forward client HTTP header information. Can they forward the HTTP header requests like cookies? Ability to support various HTTP methods. Do they support only GET or do they support put, post, delete, and options? Ability to invalidate the content. If the content has already moved from the origin into the local edge servers, can you invalidate it? Because you have a newer content. Maybe you have a press release that came in and you change the press release now and you want the new press release to be released. Ability to serve securely, custom domains, custom SSL, half-bridge, all those different techniques we'll talk about. Ability to get complete detailed reports. Can you get detailed reports of all the requests that came in so that you can incorporate it in your web analytics? And also we saw that there are several factors that define the cost model for a CDN provider.